Still Loading podcast is brought to you by the wonderful people over on Patreon. Awesome people such as Eric H., Kevin from the Bit by Bit Foundation, Gilmer, Mr. Biscuits, and Stephen P. have been wonderful enough to support the show. And if you would like to get your name read on an episode as well as access to a bunch of other goodies, go to patreon.com/stillloadingpod and consider joining. On this episode of Still Loading, the blue shell's coming for you. It's coming hard.
There you go.
I didn't even think about that till after I said it. I'm like, that's staying in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I'm your host, Josh Koval. It is Mario month in earnest. That's right. Mario Mania started 2 weeks ago with the 300th episode, but now it is March, so it is officially Mario month. And this year's Mario month is dedicated to all things Mario Kart. Mario Kart 64. I mean, y'all can see the schedule on social media. We're covering the next 5 Mario Kart games in a row, back to back to back. Ooh. And we are kicking it off with the iconic Mario Kart 64. And joining me are two amazing guests, both of them returning, but in kind of different ways. So let's start off with the one who was just on the show a few weeks ago, my buddy Ryan Kern, aka Paperclips. Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. This is really exciting for me because I tried to talk to my therapist about Banshee Boardwalk, and he didn't believe me. So,
and that adorable laugh you hear in the background is my other guest, returning guest, but only to people who are patrons. This is his first time on the main show in earnest.
Yeah, please.
Joining Ryan and I to discuss Mario Kart 64 is my good friend Luigi's apartment. Luigi, how are you doing today?
I am just dandy. This game, you are right, is iconic. Banshee Boardwalk, fun for a harrowing maybe that's why I'm so messed up, because I like that course.
You don't know anxiety until 150cc Banshee Boardwalk. Just
maybe I had enough anxiety in other parts of my life that was a relief.
Well, listeners of the show, from Patreon will recognize Luigi's voice from all the Still Bonding episodes. Luigi here has been on 3 of them. So that's right. He has been on 3, very long episodes, minimum 3.5 hours each.
It was a good time.
And the last 2 were over 4. We discussed a whole bunch of games. What? Sorry?
I said, when you got to talk Dalton, you got to talk Dalton.
You got to talk Dalton. You can't not talk Dalton.
For 8 hours.
If you really think about it, man, we did talk about Timothy Dalton for 8 hours. That was an entire shift of an average workday.
Mm-hmm.
That is the length of an average workday.
I could do that job.
Wild to think about. Oh my God. I'm excited to have both of you on this episode to discuss Mario Kart 64. And of course, we start off with our memories and how we kind of first got into the game and, our personal experiences. And normally I say, like, I either go first just so that my guests can have the final say, almost not the final say, but they can have the better impression, because in all honesty, I think your stories are better than mine most of the times. And I say that because I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. I got a hot take to start this episode. I don't like Mario Kart games.
Okay.
Now, there are varying degrees of dislike, so I want to clarify this for the listener. In no way, shape, or form do I think these games are bad. And I'm not saying that to save face. I'm not saying that to avoid any hate mail. I'm saying that because in the way I kind of view dislike of a game, there is I hate this game. I can't find any redeeming qualities about it. I don't understand why other people like it. This game can burn in hell. None of the Mario Karts are like that. Just to get that out of the way, I don't think any of the Mario Karts are like that.
No one should think that way.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few that I have opinions of, but very few, very, very few. I would never tell someone that they're wrong for liking it. I would just say I hate the game. But then there is the kind of the hipster dislike where it's like everyone else likes this game, so I'm gonna not like it, and I'm gonna make it my mission to prove to people that they're wrong for liking it. But even though
Terrible way to go through life.
it is, and there are a few games where I am like that, but I just keep that to myself because I know I'm like, just let people like a game.
Yeah,
You
Just
don't
let people enjoy things. It's not
exactly.
hard.
So there are very few games that I'm like that. Where I have like a hipster mentality too. And what all the Mario Kart games are the lightest of all of them, where it's like these games just aren't for me. It's just not like I play them. I don't dislike my time with them, but it's never something that I'm going to go out of my way to seek out. I'm just going to be like, oh, that was a nice experience. I don't need to play that again.
They are quite literally the lowest of lowest common denominator games.
I mean, they're meant to appeal to literally everyone, and it makes makes sense because
best-selling game on every console unless Pokemon's on, unless it's a portable system, in which case Pokemon takes that.
I mean, you just want to be sad about sales numbers for anything. You just look at how much Mario Kart sells on every single thing, and like, what's your favorite game on a Nintendo system? Mario Kart outsells it almost all the time.
It's the essential Nintendo game. Like,
yeah,
you get this, you get Smash, and if you have friends, you get Mario Party. But most of us don't, so we just play Mario Kart.
Because we played the last Mario Party.
Yes, exactly. You only get one Mario Party, then you don't have any friends anymore.
Yeah, I remember those days when I had friends. Then bumper balls ruined it.
Now, technically, Super Mario 64 did outsell Mario Kart 64, but wasn't Super Mario 64 a pack-in, right?
Or maybe eventually, but I don't. Not at first.
Well, it still barely outsold it. I mean, I should barely. It outsold it by 2.1 million, but Super Mario 64 sold 11.9 million copies according to Wikipedia, and Mario Kart 64 did 9.87 million. The next nearest was GoldenEye with slightly over 8 mil. So like it outsold a lot of games on the N64, and like we said, the Mario Kart games in general sell better than most other games, especially if you look at like the Wii. Like Mario Kart Wii was fucking nuts with how many copies that game sold.
I don't even want to look at the most recent numbers for Deluxe.
I know, right? Like what the highest Switch selling games are.
The install rate is like 50%.
Yeah, it's got to be way up there.
I'm gonna best selling Switch games according to Nintendo Life, just because I have this here. Mario Kart Switch Deluxe 57 million. That is just slightly. That's either right at 50%, like you said, or just below it.
That is obscene.
That is number 2 is Animal Crossing: New Horizons. Not surprising,
deservedly.
43.38 million. There was a point in time where people thought it was going to catch up and surpass it, but alas, it did not. And then Smash was at number 3, but we're not here to talk about Switch. We're here to talk about Mario Kart 64. So I'm going to throw it over to, I don't know who to throw it over. You know what, Luigi, we're going to start with you because this is your first time on the podcast in earnest. So I want to throw it over to you. What's your personal experience with this game? How did you first kind of start playing it, and just some of your fond memories around it?
Well, I got a Nintendo 64 the Christmas the year it came out, so that would have been like 96. And I got 2 games, Mario 64, which I would go on to get all 120 stars and then throw it into a closet and not look at it for 2 years. I hated it, but actually, but then I it's one of my favorite games. And then Cruisin' USA. So I had another racing game. Played that a lot. Got really good at that. I put that in. This is not about Cruisin' USA. I put that in the other day, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I love this game. It sucks, and I love it."
It's the most wonderful, terrible game. I love it.
It was supposed to be something that was like they advertised when the N64 was being marketed at first. Like, look, we have a arcade perfect port of Cruisin' USA. Only to find out that when it came out, it was not arcade perfect.
So I had those 2 games for a while. And so the Mario Kart 64 came out around the same time as Shadows of the Empire, and big Star Wars nerd.
Oh,
I was
great.
like, I only have $70 because these carts are expensive. And I went for Mario Kart because I figured that would be the more surefire thing. Did eventually end up getting Shadows of the Empire. It's fine. I think it's a important game. Other than that, it's a little rough. But Mario Kart 64, I sucked at Super Nintendo Mario Kart. Just the worst. And this game was like, it was mandatory in my neighborhood at some point. You had to have skills, like be it battle or racing. Like if you don't have the skills, sorry son, you were going to get left behind. Like you were going to get burned. We were playing this game for years afterwards, and then even like as an adult, when I was like living in my first apartment and stuff, friends from high school would come by, and we would just play the shit out of this game. I played this game for years and years and years. When the Switch came out, I went to a midnight launch, and they had, I guess, Smash 4 for Wii U and Mario Kart 64, side by side. And I was like, I'm going to pick up Mario Kart 64 because I know I can beat anybody who steps up to the plate. Smash 4, maybe not so much. I stopped around Melee basically. So yeah, I can still throw down in this game. It is one of my favorite things. I think I would call it important, but maybe we'll get to that. Why I would call it important later.
We definitely will. So Ryan, your experiences, your personal history with it.
Yeah, honestly, Luigi, you came so close to summarizing mine as well. A few key differences. So, yeah, I got a Nintendo 64 for my 8th birthday, and the one game I got with it was Mario Kart 64. And now I'm a big racing game fan. Like I mean, I have been since I was a little kid, and ironically, cruising USA and going to the mall and playing that at the arcade there. Um, why I did not get Cruisin' USA for my Nintendo 64, I don't know. But anyway, and up until that point, I had my Atari 2600 and pole position, and I played the death out of pole position on that thing. So when I got a Nintendo 64 and plugged Mario Kart in, my mind was just blown at how much better this thing on my TV is looking. Like I'm like, there's all of these cars on there, and these maps are incredible, and it was supremely mind blowing to me. And I played the death out of it, pretty much, like you said, for years afterwards. It was an essential. It was an essential thing in my neighborhood as well, and all my friends at school, we would talk about it. And now here I am, an adult. I mean, my friend had a bachelor party a few years back. We just played Mario Kart and drank all night. Like Mario Kart 64 is the gift that keeps on giving. It does not go away. And it is just like, we've had some, really good Mario Kart sequels since then. I mean, excluding Double Dash. You've got.
Hold on.
I was going to say,
wait,
to some people, them's fighting words.
Absolutely not. I will not stand for that.
All right. But no, you can always come back to Mario Kart until you get blue shelled right before the finish line. In which case, Mario Kart is the most bullshit game that ever existed, and I never want to see it again.
Such is life.
That's how it be. That's how it be. Sorry, is there anything? I didn't mean to cut you off, Ryan.
Yep, you didn't. That's where I'm at.
All right. Well, let's get into this. Oh, and actually, you know what? I mentioned at the top about how like I'm not a big Mario Kart fan. For my own experiences, nothing too memorable on a personal level. I would go over to friends' houses and we would play it, and I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the kart racing thing, but overall, I think the last Mario Kart game that like really I wouldn't say got me hooked, but I was like, oh my gosh, I'm having like an immense amount of fun, was 8, like on the Wii U before it
Mhm.
came to the Switch.
Right.
I really loved Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U, and I still think it's one of my favorites. Granted, that's not saying much considering, like I said before, I'm not a huge Mario Kart fan. It's one of those series, and I don't think I'm I forgot to mention it at the top when I was going through like the levels of dislike. Um, the thing I would say about the series in general, I wish I liked it. It's a game series that I really wish resonated with me. So I'm kind of doing Mario Kart for Mario Month this year as a way to like force myself to be like, all right, let me really look into this. Let me see what do I enjoy about these games, what do I not. And by and large, like playing with this, I really don't have much to say about dislike. It's more just like I can look at it and there's not many things that I can criticize as like,
Mhm.
oh, this was a bad choice, or I don't like how they did this and that. But we'll get into all of that. So, Mario Kart 64 was originally released in Japan on December 14th, 1996. It was then released in North America in 97 on February 10th,
Mhm.
and got the UK release June 3rd that year, and the rest of Europe on June 24th. And if you count the IQ player in China, December 25th,
Which we
Christmas
do.
Day, we do.
We do.
I, I really feel like I need to start standardizing what I like, which release dates I say on episodes, because sometimes I'll do just North America, or sometimes I'll do Japan and North America, and I say fuck the rest of the world. It's just those two that I care about. So I need to start standardizing it. But
We should, and Nintendo of Europe, it's good. Say to the high European listeners, how you doing?
I swear I love you. I swear I'm not overlooking you on purpose. But yeah, so that's pretty much my experience with Mario Kart 64. Played it as a kid on my friend's N64. I didn't own it. I did not own a copy myself, but I enjoyed it for what it was worth. But we can dive into the game in earnest now. So for those who don't know what Mario Kart is, I'm surprised you're listening, but you know what? Maybe you haven't. It's a kart racing game, and for those who don't know the difference between a regular racer and a kart racers are silly and they have items. That's it in a nutshell. They can do tons of goofy different things. There's not a whole lot of. It's not meant to be a serious racing game, though. People, as we
Oh,
found out here, do take it very seriously.
absolutely. Don't
Um,
mess around,
Yeah.
man.
And it's funny, they actually, during development, they actually toyed with the idea of having a serious mode in place for the game where there would be
Really?
no items and it would focus strictly on racing, because they wanted to appeal to more F-Zero fans, or serious
Hmm.
racing game fans.
Mhm.
And
Well,
almost
well,
everyone who demoed the game chose not to play that mode, so they scrapped it.
okay. Yeah, because basically, Super Nintendo Mario Kart is F-Zero with a bunch of silly bullshit thrown in.
Right. Yeah, that's what makes Mario Kart not F-Zero.
Hmm.
And I mean, I love both. Give
Yeah.
me. I'm still crushing F-Zero 99 now that we have it out on the Switch.
Oh,
But
Such
it's
a
so.
cool idea.
I love it.
I
So
love it
good.
so much. But yeah, I mean, I mentioned the absolute bullshit of getting blue shelled right before the finish line, but it wouldn't be Mario Kart without that. That's what
Yeah.
that's the fun of looking at your friend and saying you're not invited to my birthday anymore. Like you need all the silly stuff thrown in.
So fun.
Well, and like that, I think that what we could focus on here are like, what are the differences really between Mario Kart, the original Super Mario Kart, and Mario Kart 64? Because on the surface, you would think that there's not there. How different could it be? It has the racing game and it has a battle mode.
It's different enough that people who
Mhm.
really got into Mario Kart Super Nintendo but don't like 64, and a lot of them, these are people that are older than us, people who are like in the games press in the 90s and stuff. I've heard them talk about this being like when Mario Kart 64 showed up to the office, like we were all hype, and then none of us liked it. But which I can't understand because
I mean, some people are scared of hills
yeah.
and going up and down.
It's massive. Like Mario Kart 64, like the tracks are just huge, like
Mhm.
they're wide. There's so much space.
Yeah.
I don't know if you necessarily need that much space, but maybe it has something more to do with that. But yeah, they are just big cavernous courses.
And when they designed those courses, they added a lot of verticality to it, which was allowed to them by the use of having this be 3D. Though it is kind of funny if you look at the racers, they're just 2D sprites.
I love that. By the way, that's that, like, it could be nostalgia speaking. It could be like I'm a product of my time. That billboarding effect and using 2D sprites on a flat plane, but making it look 3D. That's just I've always like I always called it like the Camelot software look, which I know like they're not the only ones who did that, but I played so much Golden Sun, and it's just every
Yep.
time I see that, it's just got such a it's got such a dated look to it, but I love it.
High
And
five for Golden Sun and Shining, but
yes,
Well, and those sprites, it was really demanding on the animation team for those because they would have to render those sprites at tons and tons of different angles to account for all the various camera angles that you can use in the game. Like, and if you think about it, if they have different facial expressions for it, and then they would have to render that each, let's say there's like 10 different camera angles, and there might be like 20 different, or maybe not 20, like three or four different expressions that a racer might have throughout the race. That's like 40 to 50 renders per racer, and there's a decent number of racers in this game.
And this is like in the mid 90s when that takes like all night to render.
right.
Yep.
And if you can actually pull up, I was doing this just for fun earlier. If you look up the sprite sheets for Mario Kart 64, it is just enormous. The amount of, like you said, just the amount of different variations and stuff that they had to do for every racer. Like the fact that they could do this for all the different characters is just amazing.
I love looking up sprite sheets.
Yeah.
In doing the promo art for Mario Month for the Mario Fantasy Draft, I had to look up some sprite sheets to get individual sprites of like Mario. It was nothing from this. It was all from like Super Mario Bros. 1 through World, but it was still it's still really cool to see, and it's also interesting to see how they're laid out because it doesn't make any sense to us, but it's important for how the system reads the memory and stuff like that.
Right.
It's super interesting. Now,
It's really good for Discord emojis.
yes, they
Yes.
are. And speaking of animations, they on the racer select screen, they also considered making it possible for all the characters to blink and have facial animations, but they initially deemed that too time consuming. Well, they had a catastrophic hard drive crash. And even though they had backups, they ended up having to remake 80% of all the models from scratch to get them into the game on time. So,
God.
when they ended up remaking it, they're like, well, I guess we're doing animations on the screen now. So that's why the characters like blink and animate on the screen, which I'm sure listeners were like, wait, Josh, you're wrong. What, sorry?
And so they give you the little thumbs up when you do it.
There was a whole bunch of stuff they had to tinker with besides just animations, like even just getting the feel of controlling the carts in a 3D environment. They would practice. They started out testing with RC cars to see how that would feel, and determined they just didn't work well enough. It like a go-kart. It didn't feel good in the karting game. It felt too. It didn't feel. I guess it felt asynchronous is what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't know if it felt too unrealistic or maybe too realistic, but it just didn't match the fit of the carts at all.
Right.
Which makes sense because, Super RC Pro-Am has a little bit of Mario Kart in it, or RC Pro-Am and then the sequel. But you can see a little bit of that in there because, Rare knows what they're doing.
Man, I really miss Nintendo era Rare. Not their NES stuff was hit or miss, but like Super Nintendo and N64, man, like
they made like a fifth of the NES library, basically.
They did that. Retronauts had an episode about that at one point. They were talking about Rare, and yeah, if you look at who actually developed a lot of NES games, they made an insane amount of games on the NES.
Yeah,
some of them under the LJN moniker, unfortunately.
Well, basically anyone, the way it worked on the NES was you were given, in America, you were given 5 games a year. And say you only made 4, well, you could call someone up and buy the game off of them or license it from them or whatever. And Rare was just constantly making games. So they're like, yeah, I've got something for you. You want, I don't know, you want Concentration or the Taboo, the Sixth Sense. Like, yeah, we got
Did they
that.
make that?
Yeah.
Oh God.
They made Trivial Pursuit, Wheel of Fortune. I talked to Kev Bayless, who was like art designer, designed Diddy and Donkey Kong for the Super Nintendo, and he was like, "Yeah, my first day was making prizes for Wheel of Fortune."
I forgot. I actually listened to that episode of was it Need for Speed Running that he was on?
Yeah, we had him on Need for Speed Running, and then I think we talked to him after on Chat of the Wild after playing through the Star Fox Adventures, which is a game for sure.
It's a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's on a disc, so
It was released.
It was really. So some other differences between Super Mario Kart and Mario Kart 64, and probably one of the biggest ones that was easily noticeable: 4-player split screen. Easy 4-player split screen. This was a wild thing too, just because at the time it was pretty unheard of. I mean, you did have like what is it, the NES 4Play? Wasn't that what it was called too? Like there were some games that supported it, but by and large, there was not a lot of games natively that could do stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
or in a split screen, like
Right.
you get NBA Jam, you're all on the same screen. But yeah.
Yeah, because now it needs to render different parts at the same time and display them all in a way that everyone can tell what's going on.
Exactly.
And look, we're going to take the music away.
Yeah.
Well, and it was so because of the amount of characters on it, there like if you had 4 players on it, it was 4 times the calculations needed. So they had to devote a lot of processing power to that. There was also within the N64, there was some bit of tech that in the interview that I was reading, they specifically stated the N64 had some type of technical feature that allowed 4 screens to be easily seen for players, but they didn't really go into detail or what the reference was. They just said there was tech inside of it, which I wrote it down just because I thought that was interesting, but it was kind of depressingly vague.
I'm sure that like Takeda was like, look, if we're going to put 4 controller ports on this thing, we're going to need to like make sure that it can do that.
Right. Yeah. That would be, hey, we got 4 controllers for the Nintendo 64. No 4-player games, but we can't even figure out how to make it.
There's also something that happens when you have like multiple people where like the game will speed up or slow down depending on like the course or how many people you have, and like we never figured out exactly how to get that to happen, but like whenever you would wait to see the Lakitu count at the beginning, and if it was really fast, we're like, oh, get ready, boys.
I was trying to find something. I found it before and I don't have the reference anymore. I'm kind of frustrated, but I was trying to originally look up like differences between Super Mario Kart and Mario Kart 64 just in doing research before I found the one interview. And one of the things I found interesting was that depending on the number of players playing, they would add and remove things from racetracks. Like the one thing I remember is which racetrack has the train in it? Is it the desert, right?
Calamari.
That's Calamari.
Apparently, if there's 4 players on that, there's less cars on the train.
Yeah.
And if there's only 1 player on it, then it has like the full train, like the caboose, the engine, and like a whole bunch of cars in between. But if there's 4 players,
I never paid attention to that.
There's a lot of stuff like that where they would remove things, I'm assuming to save on processing power when you had 4 players. And also I would assume if you have 4 players all trying to vie to get across the track, I wonder if it served a double purpose of like kind of balancing the game out a little bit so it wasn't too hard with 4 people competing at the same time, maybe because otherwise maybe if they had too many train cars on it, maybe it dicked over 1 player when it was not the player's fault and it wasn't like another player caused it to happen type of thing. You know what I mean? Something along those lines.
Yeah.
Things get different. Things get a little weird when 4 people are playing. Like just sometimes stuff happens. Whether the course takes things away or just like I said, like the game speeds up or slows down.
I really wish I could find that thing between like the different player versions. There was a whole list. It was really interesting too.
No Donkey Kong Jr.?
I don't think there's Donkey Kong Jr. in this game, is there?
That's right. Yeah, that's the difference.
No, that's the difference. Okay. I will, you know what? Let's talk about the characters in this.
Taking features away from us. That's what they did.
Wasn't DK Jr. That was the last time he appeared in a game until like I think he was in like a Virtual Boy game, and then after that we haven't heard from him in like years.
It was like 20 years or something. That was a question on the trivia contest that you and I won.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that.
It was a very strange 20 years in their relationship. He wasn't really talking to his father very much.
I saved you from Mario, Dad, and you're not even fucking talking to me.
You don't care.
I mean, if you really
didn't get invited to
the
country, so I could see why he would leave.
If you really think about it, it is kind of wild to think that the original Donkey Kong features Donkey rebelling against an evil Mario who, like, apparently probably was mean, like, abused him. So he kidnaps his girl, and then he gets revenge on Mario after that by kidnapping him. Or no, sorry, Donkey Kong gets kidnapped by Mario. Mario gets revenge, and then Donkey Kong Jr. has to go save his dad.
Yeah.
Right.
With a very weird model.
Yes.
That's tough to tell where you're actually jumping.
That game is wild. But okay, so the racers in this game are Mario, Luigi, Peach, Toad, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, Wario, and Bowser. I'm pretty sure, I don't remember, I it's either in my notes for this or it's in my notes for something else. There was either this game or maybe it was oh goodness, what was it? Or it was either in this game or maybe it was Super Circuit where Mario, it was like Wario's first voice, I believe. It might have been in this though.
It's
maybe it's in DS.
It's this game. And because then this game and then Mario Party 1 used the Japanese voice clip.
Yes,
because the Japanese ones are different. So you get like Luigi going, "Oh my god!"
So it was on the Did You Know Gaming video for Mario Kart 64. Apparently, Wario was meant to be German.
Okay,
and you can hear that. You can hear that in the Japanese dub of the game. But when it came over to English and Charles Martinet did the voices, no one told him he was supposed to be German. So he just assumed it was like an evil version of Mario. So he assumed he would be Italian like Mario as well.
Right. My friend and I, my best friend growing up, his favorite character is Wario. Always has been. But like he was pretty new at this point. So he and I were both kind of obsessed with him, even though for me, Luigi is best boy. But
couldn't tell.
Like, well, it'll become evident. Well, if we had the cameras on, you'd see my Luigi hat. But when we played Mario Party, Wario's we hated his voice in that, and it was like he's like, "I gotta win," whereas in Mario Kart 64, he's like, "I'm gonna win," and like that always. It always pissed my friend off because he's like, he sounds so desperate. He's like, "Oh, like I'm behind on rent. I gotta win," as opposed to just like a mischievous guy, like, "Haha, I'm gonna win."
But let's be fair. If one Mario character looks like he's behind on rent, I'm giving it to Wario.
Poor Wario. Always behind on rent. Always the bride, never, or always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
That's why he's got to steal everything.
Is very true. What was your guys' favorite? So yours was Luigi.
Obviously.
Luigi.
I mean, even though he is a mid character, all around, not as fast, not as heavy. Basically, Mario and Luigi are just like essentially garbage in most of these like sports games that they have. But I don't care. He's my boy. I'm gonna stick with him no matter what.
Ryan, what about you? Who's your go-to character for this?
Bowser is and always has been my boy. I know he's not the fastest because him and Wario and Donkey Kong fall into that kind of heavy category. But he always had that friend that picked Toad, and running him over as Bowser was just satisfying. It's like, well, this is why I picked the slower character. You can't try to outrun this.
See, that's the thing about competitive versus like actually trying to beat the game. If you're going to be competitive, you might as well get a heavy because you will wreck some
Right.
people.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because if it's harder for you it's harder for you to get knocked off the track and get pushed around and kind of get stunned. It takes a little bit longer to get up to top
Mhm.
speed. But if you can, oh boy, watch out! You're
Yep,
just a
exactly.
freight train at that point. And in all honesty, it's not that hard to get up to top speed. You know, at least in my opinion.
I think I don't know if it's like this in Mario Kart 64, but your boost lasts a little bit longer I think in Double Dash. The lightweight characters have a slightly longer boost than, so there are little things like that, but I don't care. I'm going with Luigi.
One of the things that they added in Mario Kart 64 versus Super Mario Kart to the characters is the AI characters in Super Mario Kart could not drift, which I did not know.
Oh,
Then in Mario Kart 64, they could.
Doesn't matter. They rubber band.
Yeah, they rubber band anyway.
Yeah.
They
They
also
don't need to.
they also cut a lot of different tracks. There was a parking garage track they cut because they thought it made players feel dizzy because you're pretty much going around in the same direction of circle over and over and over again.
Baby Park.
And then also Big City Track was a nice pond in a castle, but apparently it was too long to race through. It was way too long.
But
of
they
a
still
track.
gave us Rainbow Road, so clearly they don't care.
God, Rainbow Road is wild.
And they stuck the castle off in the side of the Peach track,
Yeah.
Royal Raceway.
They try to add a lot of stuff to convey speed in the game as well by putting other power-ups like the mini turbos, as well as they added a change in the color of smoke to kind of add to the sense of speed. And speaking of power-ups, in Super Mario Kart, there could only be a total of they used the example in the interview. There could only be a total of 4 bananas in play at any point in time.
Oh.
Yep. In Mario Kart 64, that limit was shattered.
Yes.
They didn't.
Yeah.
They mentioned they tested out with like 100 different bananas. I don't. Like at one point, obviously, you could never realistically get that in a race, but still, it's still pretty interesting.
That's
now,
cool.
What for both of you? What power ups did you prefer? Well, Luigi, we'll start with you. What power ups did you kind of gravitate towards? Obviously it's all random. When you hit the gem, you can't really control what you're going to get, but if you had an option, if you could choose any power up, which would it be?
Oh, the star. If I could choose, it would be the star. Star makes you go faster, obliterates anything in your way, negates any lightning or whatever. It's definitely that. I think the dark horse answer is no red shells, only green, because the red shells will go like from point A to point B, no matter if there is a wall in the way or not.
Yes, the red shells do not aim well in 64.
Yeah, so like when Double Dash came out, I was like, oh, these are useful now. Okay. But like, yeah, the green shells, you eventually just get real good at aiming them. Like when Diddy Kong Racing came out, I would take the 20 single missiles over the heat-seeking one, because like I had gotten so good at just free aiming green shells that I was like, well, I got to get good at this then.
Ryan, what about you? Would you also go with the star, or would you go with something else?
If I could pick one, my absolute favorite one is getting 3 green shells.
Really?
I loved having 3 green shells because, one, you pop them out, you have a little bit of a protective barrier. Anyone gets too close to you, you automatically hit them. And when I was a kid, I was the first one of my friends to learn that you could shoot backwards. Yes. Nobody else knew how to do that, and they got so mad when they found out I could. I made it a point to not tell anybody you could do that until they were in second place, and I just shot backwards, hit them in the face.
These are the rules.
Nothing makes me feel safer on the racetrack than having 3 green shells surrounding me.
I'm telling you.
It could be red shells, but red shells you couldn't shoot backwards. And as you mentioned, that A to B, just terrible aiming. Red shells were, if you weren't right next to somebody anyway, a red shell is going into a wall somewhere.
Yeah. They're gonna unless they just passed you, in which case you could probably pick them off with the green shell.
Yeah, if you have the skill to aim with a green shell, you don't need it to be red anyway.
And that's funny thing about the 3 green shells is like you have to pay attention to where it's coming off of you, because if it's coming off the side, like or out in front of your model, like you got to be careful. But yeah.
What I'm really getting out of all this is that because I would have gone with red shells just because it's the auto tracking, but red shells are kind of like the noob cannon of Mario Kart.
Yes,
where
they
it's
are.
just it's all the bad players like myself are the ones that overutilize it. Meanwhile, I didn't even know you could shoot the green shells backwards. Like that was something I had no idea.
Yes, because I didn't tell you. I just bullied you.
That's how you do it. That's childhood in a nutshell, right there. Bullying each other on the streets of Mario Kart.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the spiny shell, which whenever we saw it, like you'd hear it coming, you'd get out of the way, but you would cheer it on. As long as they knew it, like we called it the Messenger of Doom, and we'd be like, "Go, Messenger of Doom, go!"
And the best thing about Mario Kart 64 is the spiny shell does detect who is in first place when it gets there, not when it's launched. So if you hear that sound and you tap the brakes and let your friend in second place pass you, they will get hit instead. And I won a race by doing that, and my friend still side eyes me every time we talk about it. But
I don't trust you. I don't trust you at all.
As soon as you just hear that noise coming, you hit the brakes, you're good to go.
That's when they added like explosions to it later.
Yes.
Oh my god. That's the blue shell you're talking about, right? That just to make sure.
Old spiny.
They added that to basically add some semblance of parody, I guess, like just to by basically making it so anyone could win at any moment. That was what the purpose of the spiny blue shell was. And it definitely achieves that. But if you're a good racer, it doesn't matter too much. If you can get far enough ahead of everyone, it's not going to do too much to you.
Yeah.
Depending on which CC you're using.
As a person who likes to find myself in the front of the pack whenever I can, but that's why, going back to when we were talking about the serious mode, not having power-ups, I mean, having all of the items that you can use, it can shuffle the deck at any point. You can go from last place to mid-pack. You can go from last place to win if you have a good strategy with the power-ups. It keeps it exciting. It makes it so that you don't just have one player dominating and way out in the front, and it's not like watching a Formula One race. Whoever's first off the grid, as long as they don't crash, they're probably going to win. It's good to kind of shuffle the whole playing field that way.
It definitely makes it a lot more interesting too. I think it's super smart to have the items be kind of based on your position. You get better items when you're in farther back in the race, and you don't get as many interesting items. It's usually a lot of bananas when you're up in first place.
You get like a single banana or a single green shell if you're in first place.
And it's smart though, because that's the way that you can, like you were saying, parody. It keeps the races interesting. It happened to me even at 50cc when I was playing through the game in preparation for this. I was in first place and I got hit with a blue shell, and then I got a lightning the shrinky thing, and
the lightning bolt.
The lightning bolt, and then I got hit by a red shell right afterwards, and I went from first to like fifth. I'm like, you fuckers, come on, man. It doesn't happen often, but it was just like the perfect storm of like everything all at once, and that's kind of what makes the game memorable and interesting. Now, I referenced a little bit ago about the cut tracks, the large parking garage and the castle with a big city track and everything like that. So we should talk about the levels here now. There's a number of different levels or different race tracks. There are 4 cups, Mushroom Cup, Flower Cup, Star Cup, and the Special Cup. And obviously there's different speeds. There's the 50cc speed, 100, and then 150. When I was playing through this, I was doing on the 50. I'm like, oh, this is pretty easy. And then I bumped it up to 100. It is a very noticeable difference.
And that's basically your difficulty settings, right? Your 50cc is easy, 100cc normal, 150 hard. You can think of it like that.
Oh, definitely. And the AI, like the NPCs really reflect that, because holy shit, it was like before in like 50cc, you could get ahead. Like once you got ahead, generally like they might be on you, but they weren't right on your tail. They were maybe
Right.
like if you got hit with a shell, yeah, they would either catch up to you or pass you. But by and large, like you could get ahead of them pretty quickly and maybe take like one hit before they would get ahead of you, unless you
Mm-hmm.
went the entire race without getting hit, which happens once in a while. But at 100 cc's, like I barely got ahead of the second place dude until the third lap. Like they were right on my butt the entire time. Like there's a big difference in difficulty, and I'm not even talking about just like controlling the the racer. It just in how the AI handles too. It's just wild. Did you guys ever
And then
prefer
you
CC
extra mode.
extra mode? What's extra mode? I didn't even get to that.
Extra mode is when you have to get a gold on all of the 150s, I think, or is it all of the special cups? I can't remember. But it's mirror mode.
Like all the tracks are backwards.
Yes, they're flipped. I mean, and they don't even try and hide it. Like they just mirror everything. All the writing is backwards, like on the sides, on the sponsor things on the sides of the tracks. But it's fast, but like it doesn't feel like out of control. Like it's not like, I don't know if it's the same speed as 150cc, but like you aren't wiping out as much as you do in 150cc.
I gotcha. Ryan, what about you? Did you have any preferred CC? Any difficulty?
Yeah, I usually tried to keep it at middle of the road. I usually went about 100cc. Sometimes playing with friends, we would bump up to 150cc because at that point we're competing against each other, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not so frustrating when you're wiping out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And as I mentioned at the start, I mean, Banshee Boardwalk on 150cc keeps me up at night still, even
That
all
is
these years later.
chaos.
But um, I liked around 100cc. 50cc when I play it. I mean, when I was 8 years old, I played 50cc, and I that was all I ever did. I was cool with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I bumped it up, and then I tried to go back, and I'm like, I feel like I'm going slow now.
Yeah.
But that said, I'm not a professional player of anything. So when it comes to getting gold on like the high difficulties and all other stuff, you know that's
Took
always
a
been
while.
beyond my dedication level.
I had to switch to, I believe, Yoshi to do it. I was like, okay, I'm still green.
You're still green.
But like the lightweight characters don't wipe out as much,
Mhm.
or they're like a little bit easier to control on 150. But yeah, if you wiggle a lot, and now for me as a Mario player, like just Mario games, I do this, like I've always done this thing where like if I get onto a like tiny platform, I will like press left and right a bunch real quick to like kind of make sure I'm in the center. Like over and
Yeah,
under correct real fast, just like, okay, I'm
which is
safe.
not great to do when you're on 150.
No, you cannot do that at all. You will wipe out.
Yep.
Oh man, you ever hopped a banana, or hopped a
Like try
what
to
is the
jump over one of the.
oh,
the
it's so good when you can do it.
I
I
don't
don't know
know.
if
Out
it's
of
the banana.
context, that was the weirdest question I've ever heard in my life. Just, you ever hopped a banana?
I hopped a banana the other day.
Yeah,
As you
because they
do.
will make you wipe out, and so
Yeah.
like if you can just make it like, oh, I got nowhere else to go, I got to go over it.
Yeah.
I think I've tried that. I always had bad timing with it. Now, with all the different raceways we've mentioned, the Rainbow Road and Banshee Boardwalk. What about personal favorites for all these? Like, I guess for me, just because I mentioned real quick, I was asking everyone about their preferred difficulty level. Mine is the noob one, 50cc. I upped it to 100, and I was like, oh, this is a big difference. I enjoyed it though. It was a lot more. Like I remember playing through Rainbow Road. I'm like, this isn't that hard. And then I upped it to 100cc. I'm like, oh,
You
hello,
fly
friend.
right off the side at 100
Yeah,
cc.
you were just like you. It is so much harder to control, and I don't know what I was expecting considering it's double the speed. So like, no wonder it's going to be harder. It's not just like it's an incremental difference; it's double.
Yeah.
It's so much faster. But yeah,
Like double
so
the power, double
double
the
the.
cubic centimeter on the engine. Is that what it is? That's what CC is.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
I did not even know that. I know
It's
so little
engine
about like
size.
car shenanigans.
I mean, yeah, I didn't know what the hell it was when we were kids. We didn't know what CC meant.
Right.
Who's emailing everybody? CC, but
CC.
that
That's a lot of
was
people to CC.
that's a lot of people to CC. Favorite levels though. Favorite tracks, or even if you want to start like favorite cup. Did you have a favorite cup even?
Yeah,
Cup
Star
check.
Cup.
Star Cup.
Cup check. Oh God, now I'm back in baseball. No. Yeah, Star Cup. My friend loved Wario Coliseum. If he was really good at it. There were times where I beat him at Wario Coliseum once, and I made him like sign some paper that said I beat him at Wario Coliseum. But my home track is Bowser's Castle. I hate to lose there, and it's also like the most fun track I think for me to like race on. Like I enjoy the speed, the skill that it takes, that like just get power sliding around turns and like having to get right into the next turn, and I love Bowser's Castle. So, but Star Cup's usually my favorite.
What about you, Ryan? Favorite cup, favorite track?
Yeah, I mean, not to be boring and cut out 12 other tracks here, but Star Cup is also my favorite. I mean, uh, two things I was really into when I was 8 years old was I got my Nintendo 64 and loved it, and I got a dirt bike and I loved it.
Yeah.
And Wario Stadium was just like, oh, it's a dirt bike track. I mean, it was my favorite track to race on until somebody would lightning bolt me on that jump, and then you had to do half of the track again.
Sitting there waiting for you.
You just go right to 8th place. And then I also, the second Nintendo 64 game I got was Super Mario 64, and being able to just drive up to the castle on Royal Raceway was just like exciting. It's like, I was just here in the other game. And I thought that was really cool that even as like just a, environment piece, they still had the full castle. You could just drive right up to the door.
It was awesome.
And of course, being the Bowser fanboy apologist that I am, he's never done anything wrong. Bowser's Castle, aside from, how frustrating it could be when you get sideswiped or anything by that.
Thwomp comes out of nowhere,
the Thwomp comes and
ruins
gets
your day.
you, and but what a just cool track. I mean, overall, the music, the castle, just everything about it's so cool. So yeah, Star Cup definitely for me.
For myself, I would have to say, in terms of cups, cup check, that should be a Mario Kart tournament. Cup check, like, come on, right?
There
Trademark,
we go. Yeah,
trademark the three of us. We own that now.
That's a stream right there.
Cup check.
It would probably be the Mushroom Cup, but my favorite track is actually DK's Jungle Parkway.
Yes.
I love the jungle vibe of it. I love that it's so different. It's like, because there's that large jump in the middle of it too, or like towards the end portion of it. I guess I don't remember where the finish line is in that thing, but I love. I think because my first N64 game was Donkey Kong 64, so I will always have a special place in my heart for anything Donkey Kong related in this era, like Super Nintendo through Nintendo 64. Shout out to Donkey Kong Country, finally playing through that for the first time in preparation for Backlog Month later this year. Working on that steadily but surely.
How are you feeling?
So far, not too bad. I beat the first two bosses, and I'm on the third area.
Okay.
We'll see how it goes. I am not opposed to using save states, but I have not used one to cheese a level yet. So I have I have saved save states for the sake of like if I lose progress or something like that. But other than that, I'm using the save feature in the game. And when I was low on lives, I actually just went back to the first level and just grinded out a whole bunch of extra lives, went back to where I started, or went back to the level I was stuck on, and save stated right before it and kept on going. So like I have not used a save state to cheese anything. Like I'm just using it as backups right now.
Yeah, because that gets a little hairy at some point in that game where you can just get stuck because you can't like really funky flight your way out of there in some of those worlds. But yeah, having save states would be nice.
So we'll see if I need them. We'll see if I need them. I'm excited to finally cross that off my backlog, but we'll see. But in any case, but I love DK's Jungle Parkway just because of that. Like Donkey Kong is something where I love Donkey Kong Country or Donkey Kong 64 so much. I am a defender of that game, and I will be a defender until the day I die. I love that game.
But and I spent so much time as a kid trying to land on that boat in DK Jungles Parkway. That was
yeah.
And
can you actually do it?
I don't think you can. I think you clip through it no matter what. I never figured it out.
There's no collision on it, I guess, or no. There's no.
Well, you'll hit it, but then you just kind of tumble off into the water.
Oh, I see.
But I was determined.
Before, sorry. Go ahead.
That also that jump is something that I think kind of defines this game for me, is where you decide like how far to the left you want to like try and take that jump, because you can get pretty far to the left, but like it takes you a second to get up and moving, whereas if you don't go so far to the left, you actually like retain some of your speed. And there's a lot of stuff in this game where it's like it's game theory. You're like you don't actually know like what the most efficient way to like use a super mushroom is. Like, should I wait for the boost to end, or should I just sit there and go wah 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 wah? Like, what is the most efficient way?
I'm convinced that it doing that does not work, because I had somebody not boosting right next to me and I was just spamming the button. I did not get any further ahead.
Okay. So yeah, like the 64 itself is kind of a like mysterious system, and in fact, like in terms of like these games are huge. Things could be anywhere. Anything could be hidden. The Triforce is over here. Luigi's over there. You never know what's real and who's lying to you about what's hidden in games, or who's lying to you about like what shortcuts are possible in Mario Kart 64. And so like just the whole world is open. Like anything could be possible. And this game has a lot of that, where there are, shortcuts that you would just hear about. Like, no way.
Those playground rumors are some of my favorite memories. Like I said, Mario Kart 64 wasn't my thing, but like doing stuff in like either Zelda or Donkey Kong 64 or Mario 64, Super Mario 64, like all that stuff. There was one thing I was thinking about the other day, like where as a kid, this doesn't really tie in with Mario Kart, but it just popped into my head, where like how often as a kid, especially in like early 3D games, like on like Nintendo 64 and like PS1 games, where you would just think you would find a secret by accident. So then you would look at every wall that looked similar to that, and you would just be standing there walking into walls thinking like, I bet you if I just keep walking into this wall long enough, I'll glitch through it.
Or like turn the camera so you could see behind the walls out of bounds, and like see, is there anything hidden out there that I can get to?
Yep, exactly. I remember like doing that a ton as a kid, and obviously it didn't really result in much of anything, but it was something I remember like seeing where the two like polygons would like where they would meet on the corner, like you would see the edge of the two polygons touching. I'm like, there's something in between them. I know it. This has got to be something there, and there was nothing there.
With Mario 64, you are right. That game is held together with duct tape. Like you can just the weirdest things are possible.
I mean, I can only imagine the conversations you've had with speedrunners about this game over on your other show, Need for Speedrunning.
This is a very Mario Kart 64 is a very important speedrunning game, actually.
Really?
Weirdly enough, yeah.
Talk about it a bit.
Well, to this day, the website. So a lot of speedrunning records are held on speedrun.com. But a lot of the older games, things like Super Metroid, a defining speedrun game because it gives you a clock.
Yep.
is deerforce.com, because that's like one of the names that pops up at the beginning of the game. You've got Nintendo, you've got Deer Force. So the speedrunning community has deerforce.com. All of Mario Kart's speedrunning community, all of their records are still held on mk64.com. Like,
Really?
yes, like this is the original, like, I mean, I'm sure people were trying to get the best times in Super Nintendo, but like they made a website for this game, and it still hosts all subsequent Mario Kart games.
That's nuts.
It is a notoriously busted game, but not like in like Mario Kart Wii terms. Mario Kart Wii is or same thing with like Super Circuit. Like it's broken in a way that just isn't fun. And Mario Kart 64 is like this great balance of like, there is still, it's fun. It's fun to watch these courses get broken, because it's not too I don't know, like just bunk. Like, it's not just completely ridiculous, and they're all a little different. They all have like there's so many like years of game theory behind, like, okay, we could feasibly do this, and then like someone does it with a task, like, okay, well, maybe we can find a way to do that, in real life. And like it still has a very healthy community. If you know Summoning Salt on YouTube, makes a lot of very cool YouTube videos about the history of certain games categories. Lots and lots of Mario Kart 64 different videos in Mario Kart 64, like I think like 4 or 5. One of them being the time that someone almost got every single or what is it, the record for each course. Someone had at one point had almost all 16, and it was them trying to get all 16 and the community trying to keep them from getting all 16. So yeah, there's some really great
sabotage.
Yeah, this game is really cool in that respect, and just kind of like a very important Mario Kart speedrun game, because you get the timer right there. Like a lot of early speed games it has an in-game clock.
Makes sense. That was an easy way for people to check their own times without having to like without having like like speedrunning splits as we have it now, and stuff like that. This is a complete non sequitur, but you were just one of you, I think Ryan, you might have referenced how long Rainbow Road is.
Yes.
I'm on the Mario wiki, and I'm sorry this is a complete non sequitur to talk about speedrunning, but you know what? I guess it explains why it's so hard to speedrun Rainbow Road, because it's so long. It's almost double the length of every single course. It's 2,000 meters long, and the next closest is Wario Stadium, which is 1,591.
Also very long.
Very long. Oh, that one's
a marathon.
Forever.
Like that's what when Wario Stadium starts, like, just remember, it's a marathon.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as I mentioned, if you get hit with a lightning bolt as you're trying to do that jump and you have to do half of the course again, it's even longer.
Devastating.
But yeah, Rainbow Road is a commitment for sure. It's
holy shit.
And there's some really great skips in Rainbow Road. The classic was the just like hop off the course right at the very beginning, because it's this huge downhill thing. And if you do it just right, you can like skip over to like to the left. There's some course over there and hop on it. There are ways to like trick the game into getting knocked off the course right before the finish line, crossing the finish line, and then voiding out, and then Lakitu puts you like back behind the finish line or something, and then like you get 2 laps basically.
Now before we move on to, I have one other thing I want to bring up before we move on to final thoughts and everything. Did either of you tinker with the battle courses, with the battle mode? Any memories of that? Because I think one of the reasons Mario Kart never resonated with me is because I never really got to like if I went over to a friend's house and they were playing it, it was always kind of like, oh man, we're playing Mario Kart. I would usually sit out instead of actually letting myself try and get like sucked into the competition of it. So I really think that's where it comes from. So with that said, I never really got to play the battle courses, both in the original or this one. So I'd love to hear any memories that you all have. Ryan, I want to throw it over to you first. Like what are some of your experiences in like the battle mode?
Yeah, I mean the battle mode that can break friendships just as easily, especially on the
Especially when you're
rooftop,
in bomb.
and you
Oh,
can push
rooftop.
people off or throw them into the center. Um, that is also a time where my boy Bowser gets to shine,
Mm,
because
he is a weapon.
you'll also lose a balloon if you wipe out.
Yeah.
So being the heavier characters definitely had an advantage there. But that
Hmm.
if you get four friends together and you do one of those maps, not to sound sacrilegious, but it's almost that same golden eye level of fun where you're all just trying to find each other on the map, and you're screaming at
Hmm.
each other for being
Mhm.
screen peaks, and then you try to find each other and hit them with the shell at the right time. I mean, it really it's honestly kind of amazing that the battle mode exists in the same game, because it's got such an absolutely different gameplay experience.
Mhm.
But it makes for a great party game. I mean, again, we can look back fondly on what has been lost with couch co-op, and or not couch co-op, but playing all split
Yeah, like
screen and being
well,
in that room to yell at each other.
I did an episode of my show late last year called Rocking Chairs, Halo 2 and LAN Party Memories, and it was
Oh man.
the idea of the episode was kind of an account of what I call gaming in a social space, gaming in a public space, where
Looking
it's
across the dorm room hallway and
yeah,
flipping someone off who just threw a grenade at you, like, is yeah,
exactly.
Halo 1 LAN parties in a dorm room. There's nothing quite like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't necessarily either like the first part of it, and I won't rehash the whole episode. For those who are interested, go check it out. It's a long one, but there's a lot of fun and interesting stories in it. I have my mom on for the first time on the show, and I had her on because at our church growing up, we had this thing called the Rockathon, which is where the rocking chairs things come from. And
Okay.
Okay.
it was meant to raise, it was a charity thing that was meant to raise money for usually some type of religious charity, I forget which, but like some of a
Yeah.
local charity, or sometimes we would even raise money for a local family who was in need, which I thought was really cool.
Hmm.
Um, and essentially, you would get pledges. You would walk around the church and be like, "Hi, I'm going to do this rockathon. Can you pledge money for me to do the rockathon?" And
Yes.
you would sit in rocking chairs for essentially it was supposed to be like 24 hours straight, and you would just rock back and forth, and that was the whole thing. They gave you breaks, like you could get up to go to the bathroom. They would have
Mm.
like, I think it was like every 2 hours or something, you had like a 20-minute break or something like that type of thing, or I forget what the interval was, but you could get up to stretch your legs in intervals. But
Okay.
what we would do is people would bring in their CRT televisions, their
Yes.
home consoles, and they would play games. Now, this was before Halo came out, with my earliest memories of it. But later on, as I got older and Halo came out, we did have Halo LAN parties at stuff like this. And we would just be playing Halo late into the night through these things.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I bring all that up because talking about like the battle mode and like these parties and stuff like that, it's I feel like that sometimes there's a difference between a LAN party and like what was going on in that rockathon. Wasn't a LAN party, but we were all playing games at the same time,
Yeah.
but not necessarily multiplayer, but also not necessarily, like it could have been, but there was also single player stuff. So it's an interesting thing. It's like gaming in a social space. I have no other way to describe it other than that.
Mm. Yeah, I think Mario Kart 64 was probably the most time I spent on battle mode. Super Nintendo, I mostly sucked at the racing, so I was always down to play battle in that. But yeah, Skyscraper is insane, and the thing I was talking about earlier, where the speed up happens, can happen in
Yeah.
battle mode as well, and it
Oh
happens a
really?
lot on Skyscraper. And so you've got like 3 or 4 people in a skyscraper match, and like Lakitu starts counting real fast. It's like, oh, this is gonna be it, guys. This is it. Let's go. There's
I've
so many
never
places
seen
to
that, but I'm
fly
already
off.
scared of it.
Yeah, and then I don't remember the color, the one with the color blocks with the different pyramids, but
Yes. Yeah, I'm trying to
that
remember what
takes a
that's
lot of
called.
yeah, it's maybe my favorite one. But it takes a lot of skill because there are a bunch of like bridges and platforms that go back and forth between the two things. And so like if you want to like if you really want to get away from someone who's chasing you with like a shell and you've got nothing, hitting that, you know, like turning into one of those bridges and then like and not falling off, or falling off if you know that'll help, but like not falling off is, you know, it's a skill thing getting away from people. And I think what we've got donuts, the other one where there's a big pit of
Donut,
lava in the
Block
middle.
Fort, Double Deck, and Skyscraper are the 4 battle courses.
Double deck.
Double Deck,
Oh
yeah.
man, I love double deck.
So I mentioned, you know, the yelling at your friends for, you know, screen peeking and all that. So between the Double Deck and, you know, the blocks one, that's really the ones where, because part of it is like you said, it's escaping. There's different ways you can get away when you need to.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think you're being sneaky and next thing you know, your friend is right on you again, you're like, what are you doing? What are you looking at? You saw what color I was sitting in right now. How dare you?
This is just the way things are, you know. The other really important thing to remember is when you die, you turn into a little bomb that can drive around.
Yes.
And you get one shot and you can take someone out. If you hit like a fake item block or something else, like your bomb will go away and you lose your chance to like take someone's balloon. But you can totally be flying around the course like dun 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 dun. Also another thing that you can hop, like you can like see your friend come or like just come around the corner and you have no way to turn and you got to hop at the right time and you can get over him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that game. I love battle mode. So much fun.
Man, see, this is just making me want to have like an N64 night with a group of friends. Like I'll play Mario
Good
Kart.
night.
I don't care. GoldenEye, Mario Kart. Hell, Donkey Kong 64 had 4-player multiplayer.
Oh yeah, it did.
It did. I don't know how good it was, but it had it.
Conker's got insane amounts of multiplayer modes.
I forgot. I've tried to play Conquer, and that is a tough game to play now.
It is rough.
It is very rough.
The multiplayer also very rough, but we had a lot of fun with, because there's so many like disparate modes, like they're just completely different from the next mode. Like I don't even know if I've tried all of them, but like yeah, it's a weird game.
I'll have to do a Conquer episode at some point. Now, I want to wrap up this episode with 2 things. I want to first, I have a whole bunch of listener comments. I put a poll out to, not a poll, I put out a call to my Discord and also on Instagram to see if anyone had any memories of Mario Kart 64. So I'm going to be...
You blew the spiny blue conch.
I blew the spiny blue conch. That's right. Brr. And so here, I'm just going to kind of read a bunch of these off and we can just react to them. I'm sure a lot of them are just going to be like, we've had a lot of fun with multiplayer, but we'll see what they say.
Yeah.
First up, from Real Dave Jackson from the Tales from the Backlog podcast, Mario Kart 64 is my nostalgic favorite in the series. Though Mario Kart 8 is quote-unquote better, I played it with my brother as kids. I played it with my friends in high school and college, and hearing any of the course themes play still brings all those memories back to me. I'm a Wario. I'm gonna win.
Yeah. Yeah, I was doing delivery driving at one point when I was in my 20s, and I dropped off some food at a house where they were playing Mario Kart and was like, can I step in for a second? Like, yeah, they are right. They are definitely right. This is just like, you're constantly playing this game.
I do want to jump in on one thing there. So he mentioned the course themes, and that's something actually
we haven't really talked about the music at all. You're right.
Yeah, I was going to say that's something I had in my pocket this time because, you know, this was the first game that Kenta Nagata composed for Nintendo. He then went on to do, you know, I think Wind Waker. I know he did one of the Legend of Zelda.
Wind Waker.
He did 1080 as well, which had an amazing soundtrack for the time. And my personal favorite, he did all of the field music for Animal Crossing, and
Nice.
I still bump to that from that. Like if I can listen to the 5 p.m. hour whenever, that's just like that is straight fire.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, the music that we get in this was kind of the start of his career at Nintendo, and it as was just mentioned there, like the track themes are iconic. They bring you right back to that track again.
Oh yeah. I had not the album, but like I downloaded every single track at some point when I was like in college, I think, and made an album of all of them. Which is noticeable. I mentioned it earlier, when you have 3 or 4 players, the music has to go away in order for it to be able to run.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was always like bittersweet. Like when you have 4 people together, you're going to have a good time, but like the music's gone.
Yeah.
Our next one up here is from Matt Storm, aka Stormageddon, and they are from a bunch of different podcasts. They're from the Fun and Games podcast, Screen Snark, Reignite podcast, and they're also the editor of the Game Informer show. So, yeah, Game Informer show. So, shout out to Matt.
Nice.
Matt wrote, still to this day, one of the most definitive multiplayer titles on the N64. Best Battle Mode 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As like on the N64 best battle mode?
I think they were saying that the N64 has the best battle mode.
Like of all the Mario Kart games,
Okay,
like N64
yes.
is the best. Yeah,
I will agree with that.
Yep.
I mean, GameCube's got some weird modes, like the bombs and the shine. Basically, yeah, hold on to the shine as long as you can. We would play it, but like not like this.
Next up, Geek Almanac from Instagram. So Matt's was from Instagram, so is Geek Almanac. I have a couple more from Discorders too, but since the Instagram ones are shorter, I'm kind of balancing out the longer ones with the shorter ones here. So Geek Almanac wrote, only memory I have is how infuriatingly horrible the cart's controlled. I don't know if I agree. So I was playing on the Switch. Do you guys know if there's a big difference in how they control on the Switch versus how they play on the OG 64?
I haven't played on the Switch. I've only been playing on my Nintendo 64. The only thing I can think of is again, we mentioned, if you're at 150cc, you're going to be spinning out all the time if you try to overcorrect.
Mm-hmm.
There really isn't a great sense of weight to the carts, and I think that's, I mean, it does as well as it can for a Nintendo 64 game, but they do feel kind of, like they're going, and drifting being such an important mechanic, it does take some practice to get used to versus later Mario Kart games.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like, you can pick up one of the later Mario Kart games and you can drift pretty easily and it keeps you in the turn. But in Mario Kart 64, a lot of times drifting, it's an art form. You can absolutely, oversteer or understeer real quick. You feel like you're sliding all over the place.
Yeah, if you hold one direction too long, you will wipe out. But so another course that's really, really great is Toad's Turnpike in extra mode, because not only does it flip the course, but the cars are coming at you instead of you going with traffic. You're going against traffic.
Okay.
And when high level play, when you're power sliding around corners, you will have to weave through cars. And so like you can't hold the power slide for too long in one direction. So if you go like left and right, you can actually like, make your, you will make your power slide arc wider. Depending on which direction you're turning and which way you go. So like you will have to use that to slide between the giant 18-wheeler trucks that are everywhere. So that was usually like the first track we started with was, all right, let's go. Like, let's jump in the deep end. Let's go. A lot of 64 games, you need the 64 controller to play.
Yeah, absolutely.
This, I don't think, is one of them.
I can see that.
Yeah, it's probably fine. You're probably okay. Like some games really need that N64 control stick or the buttons or the just the way the layout is.
It's funny you talk about how the drifting works and all the control and everything. it was brought up by the question, but like one thing one of the fun facts I had written down in my notes that I didn't find a chance to bring up in conversation was that they did experiment with having you be able to do everything with just the joystick. Like obviously accelerate is a different button, but they wanted to have you to be able to drift with just the joystick, not have to hit a button to drift, which I think would have been a dumb idea. I'm glad they didn't include that. I'm glad they got rid of it. They felt it was too complicated, and I'm kind of with them on that. I feel like that would have been really difficult to manage like effectively.
Oh, I would be remiss if we didn't bring up the hop. When you to start a drift, you hit the like right, you hit R, and your character will hop, and then you want to turn into that after the hop is over. But that hop is, like I said, used for jumping over items sometimes, or making tighter turns. You can just hop real fast and get like a quicker turn. But it's very important.
Now some other Instagram comments real quick. From Captain Class 87, I'll never forget the screech from Toad launching off the air, launching in the air off Rainbow Road after using the boost mushrooms. What a way for Toad to go.
I'm telling, the voice samples in this game are just a treasure.
Charles Martinet, baby. I like. Oh my god! And I do think I really wish I could find. I think it was on the Did You Know gaming thing. Like I said, it was the first time Wario got a voice, and a lot of different characters got voices. So it's cool to hear all that.
Even Bowser's got like a voice. Characters that do not speak English have voices, and it's great.
The final response from Instagram for this game is from the Review Brothers podcast. My dad bought it and 3 controllers so we could play 4-player after having having a go in a shop. I'm assuming maybe their dad had a shop or something like that.
The demo kiosk.
Oh, that makes it. After having a go of it in the shop. I see. Sorry, there was a little bit of sorry, Review Brothers. I didn't mean to butcher that. It was a slight typo.
Ocean. There's a bit of an ocean between us.
But yeah,
you were just talking bad about Europe early on, and now here we are.
Well, actually, they're from Massachusetts, or maybe not Massachusetts. They're from up farther north, not Canada. Anyway, sorry, I'm over explaining all this shit. So our last 2, we have 2 more from Discord here. Next is from Chris Copleen from the Retro Hangover podcast, and he writes, I remember heavily anticipating Mario 64 after it was announced. I was a huge fan of the original Mario Kart, and being able to do everything I did there, but with bigger and better graphics, was something that I couldn't wait for. Oddly, for a long time, I thought it wasn't quite as good as the original.
See?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
See what I'm saying?
But now there's been enough time for the dust to really settle, and the difference the analog stick makes is immeasurable in terms of how much better the game controls. Today, I think it's the best kart racer of that era, even better than I think Donkey Kong and Crash Team Racing. Donkey Kong Racing and
Diddy Kong,
excuse me. That makes
Yeah,
I was
Diddy
like,
Kong.
yeah, Diddy Kong Racing and Crash Team Racing. That. He used abbreviation, so I fucked it up. That's not his fault. I totally I fucked up the name. Diddy Kong Racing and Crash Team Racing. But it's still hard to go back to with the magnificence that is Mario Kart 8. So some more love for Mario Kart 8.
It is quite possibly the most distilled version of Mario Kart. It takes basically everything you remember about whatever Mario Kart's your favorite, unless it's Double Dash, and kind of perfects it, or gives you maybe not perfects it, but it's basically got your memory, your nostalgia of whatever Mario Kart it is it's in Mario Kart 8.
Yeah. And especially now at this point in its life cycle, when it's gotten,
it's out for 10 years.
All the additional content added and stuff, they're just constantly giving you more and more to go, oh, wow, I love that thing,
Well, it took about 9 years for them to give us more, but yes.
But my only gripe with the later Mario Kart is any Mario Kart that came out once they started adding coins to it, which I can't remember.
Well, the first one.
The first one had coins.
Okay, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, now, because My problem is I'll get, if I can get to the end of a race in Mario Kart 64 and I'm in first place, that's as good as I need to do, and I'm very
Mm-hmm.
happy with that. Um, any Mario Kart with coins and I get hit by a shell, even if I finish in first place and I don't have 10 coins, I'm sad about it.
You feel
And
I
it
feel like a
hurts the
failure.
completionist side of my brain. Yeah.
Oh my god! All right, our final one from the quiz master himself, Max Keaton. He was the one, Luigi. He was the quiz master for over at Secret Levels that we did.
That's true.
Oh, actually, we
Yes.
have to. I think he tagged both of us somewhat recently on Discord. I have to get back. We have to get back to him.
Yeah.
Uh,
I believe I answered the call, but
okay, I need.
she can say something.
I still need to answer the call. All right. Anyway,
We're gonna wreck face.
oh yeah. So Max Keaton writes, I played a bit of it in college with friends, but no specific memories. I do think that it's really cool that the Royal Raceway, or whatever it's called, has this little offshoot where you can drive around the palace from Mario 64. It serves no purpose, it's just a cool little spot.
Yeah. Second shout
Agree.
out for that palace. It was a really cool touch. And, as you mentioned, it serves no real purpose. It's just they put it there as detail, and that shows, like, they didn't have to. They could have made that just like something in the background that you couldn't reach, like,
Right.
but instead they actually made the choice that, hey, if you want to drive off the track, you can drive right up to the door of this castle. And details like that, I think, are really nice.
Tension.
Yeah, and like especially since this game came out when a lot of people were still playing through Mario 64.
Yeah.
And like, oh, here we're right here. Here we are. And also, like, is there anything we can learn from this to find a star in Mario 64? Because we're running out of stars, and I don't know where they are, and I need to find all of them.
Oh my god. That's all the listener responses that I had. I have a feeling I'm not going to get as many for the subsequent episodes because we're doing, Mario Kart 64, Super Circuit, Double Dash, DS, and Wii. I had a feeling that we were going to get the most for this one. We'll see about the others, but as of now, I'm assuming this is going to be our highest, the one that has the most amount of feedback coming from the audience. So, but
definitely not Super Circuit.
yeah,
But
I'm good.
DS,
I have not put the
DS
call
is
out just yet, but
Wii, yeah.
I did get one response for the DS. I'm going to put out another call for that, but we'll find out.
Okay.
So yeah, let's wrap up this episode. Final thoughts, y'all. Like, what are your final takeaways from this game now that we got to talk about it for like about an hour and a half? I'll go first just because mine are going to be short. It's honestly, it's still fun. Like, I'm not even saying that to be nice. Like I said, I'm not a big Mario Kart fan, but I did not, in preparation for this episode, never once was it a chore to go back and try to play this game. The tracks were fun. The handling was solid, though. Once again, I did play the Switch version, so take that for what it's worth. I don't know if there's a huge difference in control on the Switch versus the N64, but it still held up for me. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, the DK's Jungle Parkway was a lot of fun. I also really like Yoshi Valley a lot. That was fun and interesting. I
you
love
never
how
know which way is the right way.
Yeah, it's really cool. Rainbow Road can still go fuck itself, but that's its own thing. But I feel like that's a sentiment in pretty much every Mario Kart game. So yeah, I still enjoyed it. I'm happy I got to experience a little bit. I did play through all the tracks on the 50cc circuit at least once, and I plan to do that for every one of these games so I can at least experience all of the tracks in earnest. But yeah, that's all I got. So I want to throw it over to you, Ryan. What are your final thoughts on this game?
Yeah. Again, as I mentioned, this has been a really important game in my life. Just it was my first Nintendo 64 game. It was my first time stepping up from an Atari 2600. I mean, it was a huge leap for me at that age, and I have a lifelong love of racing games. It's one of the primary genres I play, and I mean, kart racers aren't exactly the same as a lot of the other games I play, but it still kind of threw that, competitive spirit into the ring for me. I had so much fun with this, and we were only talking a couple days ago when you said you were going to be recording an episode on Mario Kart 64, and would I want to jump on and talk about it? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And then we stopped talking, and I was like, that means I'm going to have to really cram a lot of Mario Kart 64 knowledge in the next couple days. And then it was like, hell yeah, I got to cram a bunch of Mario Kart 64 in the next few days. So I broke out the Nintendo 64, put my cartridge in, started playing it. And I mean, it's been the most fun I've had cramming research after work each day. I mean, shout out to the cows on Moo Moo Farm. They still look fantastic as ever, standing in the background there. And I love this game.
And the shrews can go to hell.
Yeah, the shrews can go to hell. I don't care. The cows don't do anything wrong to me.
I am not.
I love that the speed run of that, like the fast lap. It's like, we're just going to go through the shrews and hope they don't pop up. And if they do, got to restart.
Praying to RNGesus that it all works out.
Absolutely. Yep. I think you bring up, like, I think this is an important racing game. Mm-hmm. Before this, it's a lot of, like the Rad Racer pole position kind of thing, where like the course is being generated in front of you, and you only learn it once you've done it a few times, and okay, the turn's about to happen up here. It's like Redwood Forest, even in Cruising USA, like the Redwood Forest. It's just I don't know, man. Just hold on, and maybe you'll get through. just turn. It's just going to be nothing but awful turns that you won't see coming. But like this, you feel like you're actually on the course. You're actually, kind of racing. Like it was the first time I played a racing game and was like, oh, cool. Like this is kind of a racing game. It's fun. So yeah, I adore this game. I will stop if I see it anywhere. I will stop and play it no matter what. I will ask to get in. If I am on the clock, I will step into a customer's house and try and challenge them to a match of Banshee Boardwalk. I don't know, this. There's something really great, like the best Mario Kart games. Like when you're in the zone, nothing else feels like it. And like this, and I would say like Double Dash are completely different games, but like when you're on it, oh man, it feels so good. And like if like Banshee Boardwalk is terrifying, but like when you crush it, like you feel like a god. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's just nothing, you can't really quantify like that feeling. It's just a good feeling. So I cherish this game. I'm not ready to have a conversation whether Diddy Kong Racing or this game is better. They are different games. That is a fool's errand. Don't even try and do it. They're both really great, but yeah, this is. I still think Double Dash is my favorite Mario Kart game, but this I have not played it nearly as much as I've played this game.
I think something that was brought up a whole bunch of times over the course of this episode is really why Mario Kart continues to resonate with people. And I think there's a thing where, one of the reasons why certain games hit us in a more nostalgic, like hits us more in the nostalgia more than others, is due to like stuff that happens at the time. Like a lot of times you're nostalgic for a game because you associate it with a specific time in your life, right? And Mario Kart is always it's a party game. So what do you remember? Every generation remembers playing Mario Kart with their friends. That's why it's continued to stay popular. For us back in the 90s, you would think, you have a friend over for a sleepover where you don't sleep, you get pizza, maybe you go to Blockbuster to rent a cartridge. And I know this is all clickbait bullshit that you would see on social media all the time, but there is an element of truth to that. I don't engage with those posts. I don't want to give them those engagement farmers any more engagement. But it is true.
You rent Turok.
You rent Turok.
And then
there you go.
You play it for a little while, and then you put this game in.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's like 100% of everyone's experience playing Turok. So
yeah, like, oh, that was funny. Oh, we tried all the codes. That was great. Okay, let's play the real game now. Did you bring Mario Kart? Hell yeah, I brought Mario Kart.
And then you have a night of just getting mad at each other and then making up through multiple rounds of Mario Kart. And everyone has a different experience with it. For me, like I said, Mario Kart wasn't my thing, but I can relate to that experience because I had many nights like that with different games. And Mario Kart is very much that. The series is very much that for a lot of people. So I'm happy I'm finally being able to earnestly play through all these games, not get the true experience because I'm playing these solo through all the different levels, but that's why I have all these wonderful guests on these episodes to help flesh out where my memory, where my nostalgia is lacking. So
Aw.
guests, I want to throw it back over to you for shout outs. Where can the good people find you online, and what would you like to promote? Luigi, we'll start off with you. So yeah, what do you got? Shout out your stuff to my listeners.
All right. Well, right now you can find me over on Need for Speed Running. It is a show about speed runs that I do with my friend Brad and a couple people from Games Done Quick. I think we're taking January off because the holidays were crazy, and just they are. Hobbs is like the head of the interview team. Ruby is involved in so much stuff, and so they're just not really, they don't have much brain power right now. GDQ starts when
In
we're
3
recording
days
this.
after we
Yeah.
record this, 3 days.
Yeah. So, but I always love, a GDQ week. I just leave the TV on all week. And if I happen to be in the room and see something cool on, I'll sit down. But really, all the runs are cool. Just like, even if you've never heard of the game, watch it. You'll probably learn something. It'll be weird. You'll have a good time. I love a good speed run week. So, and then we'll get back and we'll talk about, we'll break down Awesome Games Done Quick 2024. So check out Need for Speed Running, and I'm nice, so listen to my show.
I'm with you. I love GDQ week. I'm so excited. I won't be able to watch it as much as I normally do because I work in an office, so I can't really watch it at work. And also when I get home, it's kid friendly. I'm not worried about watching it in front of my kid, but she's a toddler. She's not even 3 yet. I don't think she's not going to be able to pay attention for it. She'll be like, "Ooh, games." And after 20 minutes, she's like, "Can we watch Bluey?" Which, not opposed to Bluey. I love me some Bluey.
Bluey's great.
I can't wait. So, you're Ryan, throwing it over to you though. Where can the good people find you online, and is there anything you'd like to promote?
Okay, yeah, I am actually more prepared for this time than I was during the Celeste episode.
Yeah.
So here I am. I am a content creator who has not yet created any content outside of the show. It's kind of my goal for 2024 to get things up and running, but I have, a YouTube channel up. I got a Facebook page. I got my Instagram, Threads, if I ever remember to open it. And as you mentioned at the top of the show, it's Paperclips, PAAPERCLIPS. That's just the screen name I've been using since like 4th grade, and I just feel like it's really fitting for me.
There you go.
But yeah, I got my Facebook page up. I'm starting to post some stuff on there. Got my Instagram. Be a great place for people to reach out to me, and hopefully, I'll be putting some videos out soon. I'm really mainly interested in focusing on the industry side of things, the kind of behind the scenes development, stories about the context and how games came to be. So that's really the kind of content I'm looking to put out.
Cool.
Yeah, so make sure you all go check out and follow his pages. I will include links to everybody's stuff in the show notes so you can check it out there. As for my own shenanigans, of course, as usual, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, Twitch, @StillLoadingPod on all those places. I should just stop listing it out. I should just be @StillLoadingPod everywhere except YouTube, which is @StillLoadingPodcast. You can support the show in a number of ways. You can give it a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts or whichever podcasting app you use. That helps more people find the show, and I like reading kind reviews. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy, and I like feeling warm and fuzzy. You can also...
It really does help, and
it does.
It's a free way to help.
That most importantly, it is free. It costs you nothing but a couple seconds of your time to write a nice review. And then if you want to support monetarily and help grow the show and help me do more things with it, there is a Patreon, patreon.com/stillloadingpod. For $1 a month, you'll get all the episodes a few days earlier with better audio quality, as well as access to patron voting rights, where I do quarterly polls that my patrons get to vote on to help guide the direction of the show with different games and episode topics. And the beginning of this year, I shouted it out. I think I did it in the Celeste episode. I don't remember. I'm so inconsistent with where and when I shout stuff out. But I had a massive poll for Backlog Month, which will be happening, in either October or November this year, where 16 games got put up on the poll, and the top 4 are ones that I'm playing through Backlog Month, which is why I was playing Donkey Kong Country. That's one of the games in my backlog. So Backlog Month is happening, and I've already actually beaten one of the games for it, which is I'm excited about, and continuing on with the other 3. Thank you. I mean, it was a short one, but we'll see how the other 3 go. But that's all at the $1 level. It's a lot of stuff you can do, all for just $1 a month. There's a level above that. For $3 a month, you'll get access to everything at the $1 level, plus patron shout outs. Anyone at the $3 level will get a patron shout out if they so choose. I don't force anyone to do it, but if they would like it, it is there. For the $4 level, you'll get everything I mentioned prior, plus access to 2 bonus episodes. And then at the $5 level, which Luigi here is very familiar with, because that is the still bonding level, where me and a bunch of friends bond over 007, crazy long episodes going through the entirety of the James Bond movie franchise. At the time this one comes out, Tomorrow Never Dies will have been released, and we are getting close to the release of The World Is Not Enough. So we're burning our way through the Pierce Brosnan era. Luigi has been on 3 of the episodes.
Because there's oil in that one.
There's a lot of oil. Lots of explosions in the Brosnan era. Also, he's very bitey with his kisses. I always have to bring that up. There's a lot of biting. It makes me uncomfortable.
I forgot about that.
Not a fan of that.
But weird.
Patreon.com/stillloadingpod. But that's all the time I have for you on this episode of Still Loading. Thank you all so much for joining us. Luigi, thank you for joining me.
Absolutely.
Ryan, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And with all that said, listeners, I will see you all next time.
Watch out for bananas.